This issue, English spoken, of an already video available in Italian, is dedicated to the many comments arrived from people outside Italy, and it is a tribute to this magnificent city. After spending the summer on a long trip to Iceland, we decided to spend the autumn in another wonderful island, Sicily, starting from the beautiful Palermo. The best, fastest, most relaxing and cheapest way to reach Palermo from Genoa is without a doubt the ferry Grandi Navi Veloci, which, in just 20 hours at a price lower than that of diesel only and motorway tolls, allows you to get to Palermo perfectly relaxed. The cabins and rooms of the ferry, however, are very comfortable and the crossing passes in a flash. In Palermo we chose the Green Park Rest area, located just 400 meters from the Norman Palace. Practically in the city center, it allows you to reach the center on foot. Guarded 24 hours a day, it is quiet, close to shops, with electricity, services, loading and unloading connections, and at a reasonable cost of €20 per day. Palermo is the fifth largest Italian municipality by population and one of the main centers of southern Italy. The city boasts a plurimillennial history and has played an important role in the events of the Mediterranean and Europe. Founded by the Phoenicians between the 7th and 6th centuries before Christ, conquered by the Vandals, it passed under Byzantium and then inexorably conquered by the Saracens. Subsequently, with the advent of the Normans, it was the coronation city for the numerous rulers of Sicily. Since then the capital of the Kingdom of Sicily has remained, with ups and downs. Palermo is a mix of places, historic buildings, and landscapes, sea and beaches that will satisfy any tourist. The famous Golden Basin, once formed by orchards and gardens cultivated with orange trees, from which the name of the basin derives, is now replaced by houses, streets, and buildings of all kinds. The long history of the city and the succession of numerous civilizations and peoples have given it a remarkable artistic and architectural heritage. Palermo has 7 sites already UNESCO heritage sites and another 8 under evaluation. Among the monuments present, the imprint left by the Norman domination prevails over everything. The presence of numerous Arab-style buildings, the palaces and residences of the ancient noble families of Palermo, the beautiful churches decorated in the Sicilian Baroque style, enrich and complete the tourist offer of the city. The population of the city, friendly, always available and pleasantly courteous, completes the welcome that Palermo offers to its visitors. In the construction of this building, all the dominations to which the city has been subjected overlap and mix. The first Byzantine building was enlarged and enriched by the Arabs, then by the Normans, the Aragonese, the Spanish, and finally by the Bourbons. The external appearance of the building today is dotted with domes, spires, battlements, large windows that make it very rich and elaborate. The most architecturally striking site is the southern one, which overlooks the gardens and the main street of Palermo. The entrance portal on this side, with its advanced features and the large Catalan Gothic portico, has access consisting of 3 pointed arches, supported by flowered capitals and supported by columns from the mosque. The first column on the left bears an Arabic inscription from the Quran. The exterior of the cathedral is completed by the 4 bell towers located on the corners, while the 5th, the highest, stands detached on the other side of the street. The main entrance is located on the western side, the less imposing one, characterized by two arches that, bypassing the street, connect the building with the bell tower and the bishop's palace. Many couples aspire to celebrate their wedding in this beautiful cathedral. The rear external side is far from secondary, is a chisel of inlays of lava stone and sandstone of clear Arab inspiration. The interior, although rich and widely decorated, appears bare compared to the richness of the exterior. Imposing are the monumental tombs of Federico II and Ruggiero placed in a lateral nave. In the crypt there are numerous tombs of nobles and prelates who lived in various eras. The visit of the cathedral is completed with the climb on the terrace located above the central nave, from which you have a splendid view of the surrounding neighborhoods. Admiring this beautiful fountain, few people know that it was built in 1500 for a garden in Florence, and only later, after about 20 years, was it sold and transferred to Palermo. Here the Senate decided to erect it in front of the Praetorian Palace, the current town hall, where it completely occupies the square in front of the building. The fountain has a central basin surrounded by 4 stairways, bridges and a balustrade fence. In total the fountain consists of 3 coaxial tanks from which the water game starts, water poured from the top by a Bacchus. The fountain feeds 56 jets, is adorned with 37 statues and 24 animal heads. In 1973 the Italian Post Office dedicated a 25 lire stamp to the Pretoria fountain. The Church of Santa Caterina di Alessandria in Egypt is known locally as the Church of Santa Caterina del Dun. The church has a single nave with 3 chapels on each side. What is most striking is the rich interior decoration, typical of the Sicilian Baroque. The decoration of the interior spaces, as well as for many other churches in Palermo, consists of a sumptuous marble apparatus, inlays of hard stones, stuccos, and frescoes that blend, in a single harmonious reading, with the load-bearing architectural structures. The presence on the walls of the numerous grates can be explained by the need to let the cloistered nuns of the adjoining convent attend the functions, not seen by the lay people attending the masses. All the works that decorate the walls are of the highest quality. The marble inlaid squares and the numerous high reliefs in polychrome marble reproduce episodes from the Old Testament. The medallions on the walls of the presbytery area depict stories of Saint Catherine. The church is a sumptuous and excellent combination and coexistence of marble, hard stones, stuccos, friezes, scrolls, and inlays, which is identified in the pure Baroque style that enhances this work of the Sicilian Renaissance. It is necessary to see for yourself the richness of these decorations that cover every minimal space of the walls, ceiling, and floor, because otherwise it is difficult to imagine them from photos and videos. The Church of Santa Maria dell'Ammiraglio, known as Martorana, is located in the historic center of Palermo. The church belongs to the Albanian community of Piana degli Albanesi, a municipality near Palermo, and officiates the liturgy according to the Byzantine Rite, using ancient Greek or Albanian as the language. The Norman medieval building, with tower in the facade, is characterized by the multiplicity of styles that meet, as, with the succession of the centuries, it was enriched by various other artistic, architectural, and cultural tastes. Today it looks like a church historical monument, which since July 2015 has been part of the UNESCO World Heritage Site. The interior is an apotheosis of Byzantine mosaic art. The dominant colors are gold and lapis lazuli blue. Once inside the first body of the building, there are two mosaic decorations depicting Ruggiero dressed as a Byzantine emperor and crowned king by the hand of Jesus Christ, the other the dedication of the church to the Virgin by Admiral Giorgio di Antiochia, from which the name of the church derives. On the western wall of the same room there is a plaque that recalls the national hero of the Albanians, Skanderbeg, with the engraving of the Constantinopolitan double-headed eagle, symbol of Albania. Byzantine icons on the sides. Continuing we reach the medieval church, the original nucleus. Here one is fascinated by the upper part of the walls and the dome, at the top of which stands the image of Christ on the throne. The grandiose cycle of Byzantine mosaics in the church is the oldest in Sicily. The church dedicated to San Cataldo, from the outside, is characterized by the three red domes that make up the vault of the central nave. It rises in the central Piazza Bellini, next to the churches of Martorana and Santa Caterina. The exterior has a compact and bare sandstone wall, softened by carvings of blind arches and openwork rings, with a clear Islamic influence. As mentioned above, the solemn profiles of three red domes impose themselves, with a smooth, hemispherical, and raised cap, placed in a happy chromatic contrast with the severe monochrome of the external walls. The interior, of reduced dimensions, has three short naves separated by columns, the central one of which is marked by the rhythmic sequence of the three domes. The custody of the church is entrusted to the Equestrian Order of the Holy Sepulchre of Jerusalem, which, historically, appears to be the oldest of the military sacred orders, which dates back to the initial entrustment of the Holy Sepulchre to a group of devotees who, if necessary, would have also had to wield weapons for his defense. In Palermo city there are over 600 churches, many of which are of considerable historical and artistic interest. I believe that, all over the globe, only Rome can boast a similar artistic heritage. As evidence of the profound faith of the city, the oratories, monasteries, boarding schools, and religious brotherhoods that manage an additional 500 minor places of worship must be added to the churches. Impossible, therefore, not even for a Palermitan, to visit and get to know them all, imagine for a passing tourist. Here we see a brief summary of those we visited, all worthy of a visit. The Church of the Gesù, also known as Casa Professa, is one of the most important Baroque churches in Palermo and in the whole of Sicily. Its construction dates back to the end of 1500. The monumental aggregate, which belongs to the Jesuits, is located in the historic center of Palermo, in the Ballarò area. The external facade, quite simple and anonymous, makes absolutely no sense of the richness of the internal decorations. The interior decoration, whose walls are covered with marbles, inlays, statues, and endless arabesques, which must have cost the ambitious Jesuits an immense amount of money. Probably the Jesuits of the time wanted to tarnish with this church every other sacred building in the city of Palermo. Their ambition, today however, constitutes an important example of fusion between architecture, painting, and plastic decoration. Particularly lively is the mixed decoration, that is to say in precious marble inlays, composed with floral motifs or geometric figures. The decoration of the church is almost theatrical, very articulated with rich and complex decorative systems, partly inlaid and partly in relief. It is a masterpiece of the Sicilian Baroque genre. The decorations are a collaboration between architects and sculptors, marble workers, and painters, often with very blurred boundaries between the different categories of craftsmen. In this sense, the Jesuit Church of Casa Professa represents the most complex and grandiose example of doctrinal exaltation to reaffirm the power of the Jesuit order. A beautiful organ that has over 4,000 pipes completes the furnishings of the church. It could take hours to admire the perfection of these inlays which, even up close, denote the precision and sharpness of the craftsman. The Palazzo of the Normanni, also known as the Royal Palace, is currently the seat of the Sicilian Regional Assembly. The palace is the oldest royal residence in Europe, home to the rulers of the Kingdom of Sicily, imperial seat with Frederick II and Corrado IV. It is one of the most visited monuments on the island. The aggregate of the buildings has the shape of two arms which originate two large internal courtyards. Multiple styles are based on the various facets of the various perspectives, which mix various elements combined with inlaid lava, interweaving of living stone, moldings, battlements, and arches. Of the four original Norman towers, today only the last two, quadrangular in shape, remain. There are several internal courtyards, two of them equipped with loggias and arcades, the Maqueda courtyard entirely porticoed with two orders of Renaissance-style loggias, and the Cortile della Fontana placed at a higher level than the first. The various levels are connected to each other by monumental stairways. The Palatine Chapel is a three-nave basilica located within the architectural complex of the Palazzo of Normanni. The temple was conceived as a private chapel. The apses, according to the Byzantine rules placed to the east, are set in the Renaissance wing of Palazzo of Normanni. The wall of the right nave and the adjacent loggia overlook the courtyard. The building has a basilica layout with three naves separated by granite and marble columns with capitals with pointed arches. The construction is completed by the dome, erected over the presbytery cross. The dome, the transept, and the apses are entirely decorated in the upper part by Byzantine mosaics, among the most important in Sicily, depicting various biblical scenes, the evangelists, and the blessing Creator Christ, who is the most impactful image of the chapel. The Norman mosaics, created at the behest of Ruggiero II, describe the cycle of Genesis in the central nave. The cycle of the side aisles includes the life of San Pietro and San Paolo, a work anticipating the themes of the mosaics of the building of Santa Maria Nuova di Monreale. The more recent Bourbon mosaics describe episodes from the Old and New Testaments with cycles ranging from creation to the Passion of Jesus. The series of scenes on Peter and Paul the Apostles and the depictions of the ranks of archangels and angels, prophets, and evangelists conclude the review. A side wall houses a stone clock, running on water, bearing inscriptions engraved in Greek, Latin and Arabic. In the lateral nave there is the baptismal font where sovereigns and members of the Bourbons were baptized. In the center of the dome the Creator Christ, depicted in a blessing act with his right hand, with the left holds the book of the Gospels. The halo is a Greek cross. The clothes are reminiscent of the ceremonial clothes of the Byzantine emperors. The splendor and magnificence of celestial glory is even more enhanced by the light of the 8 windows placed at the base of the hemisphere. In addition to the Byzantine mosaics, the wonderful cosmatesque floors are also to be admired. But the Palatine Chapel is also famous for the carved ceilings, made by the masters of the Arab school, which refer to the artistic style typical of the Maghreb and Egypt buildings. The inlays of the wooden caissons, painted with rare images and inscriptions in ancient Arabic writing, present ornaments of plants and various animals, real or fantastic and mythological, including human figures, the latter expressly prohibited by Muslim tradition, but here immortalized in hunting, war, and love scenes. The representations of the Palatine Chapel are a very rare case, present in Sicily, of Islamic art permeated by Sicilian taste and concepts. Among the wooden rosettes, paintings with the representations of the sovereign and eminent dignitaries. The beautiful Cathedral of Monreale deserves a separate discussion. Built starting from 1174 at the behest of William II of Altavilla, it is famous for the rich Byzantine mosaics that decorate its interior. Since July 2015 it has been part of the World Heritage Site. According to legend, William II the Good would have fallen asleep under a carob tree while hunting in the Monreale woods. In a dream the Madonna appeared to him, who said to him, "In the place where you are sleeping the greatest treasure in the world is hidden." The Virgin disappeared and William ordered that the carob tree be eradicated and excavated around it. With great amazement, a treasure in gold coins was discovered which were immediately destined for the construction of the Cathedral of Monreale. The vast interior of the cathedral has a Latin cross plan. The naves, each ending with semicircular apses, are divided by columns and capitals that support Arabic-style pointed arches. The ceilings are exposed beams painted in the aisles and Arabic-style stalactites in the creuse. The floor, completed in the 16th century, is mosaic, with porphyry and granite discs and marble bands. Inside it is possible to observe on the right side the porphyry sarcophagus of William I, and the marble sarcophagus of William II the Good. The mosaics constitute an executive complex of substantial extension, about 300 square meters for the wall bands, and 975 square meters for the floor of the large presbytery. It is an extraordinarily varied and numerous repertoire of decorative motifs. The mosaics that adorn the cathedral mainly represent the stories of the Old and New Testaments, including various biblical episodes ranging from the 7 days of creation to the foundation of the church. These representations are then joined by other mosaic decorations representing an array of angels, saints and prophets. In the vault of the transept, the image of Christ Pantocrator is surrounded by the Virgin, by angels and apostles. Both the main and minor naves have additional representations, always made with mosaics. In the first one there is a group of 3 representations concerning the biography of 3 saints. In the latter, however, several spaces are dedicated to the illustration of the miracles performed by Christ. The Duomo is flanked by the cloister of the ancient Benedictine monastery, built at the end of the 12th century. It is a purely Romanesque construction, with a square plan, with a portico with pointed arches. The arches are supported by paired columns, some carved in arabesques and others with mosaic inlays. The capitals are decorated with biblical scenes. In the southern corner there is a quadrangular enclosure delimited by 3 arches on each side. In the center is a fountain whose water flows from a richly carved column in the shape of a stylized palm tree. The bases of the columns of the cloister represent a very wide variety of motifs: stylized leaves, rosettes, lions' paws, heads of fares, groups of men and animals, frogs, and lizards. Ballarò is a well-known historical food market in Palermo. The permanent market extends from the Casa Professa church to the bastions of Porta Sant'Agata. The market is famous for the sale of the first fruits that come from the Palermo countryside. Ballarò is the oldest of the city's markets, frequented daily by hundreds of people, animated by the boisterous calls of vendors who, with their characteristic and colorful local accent, try to attract the interest of passers-by. For dessert lovers, Ballarò is a true paradise. The typical street food of Ballarò is the spleen sandwich, very good. The Palazzo della Zisa, a name which in Arabic means the splendid one, stood outside the walls of the city of Palermo, inside a large Norman royal park, the Ginoardo, a name derived from the Arab paradise of the earth, which extended with splendid pavilions, lush gardens, and pools of water in the Golden Basin. The story describes Zisa as follows: Guglielmo, rivaling his father, moved to manufacture such a palace that was more splendid and sumptuous than those left to him by Ruggiero. The new building was built in a very short time and with great expense. The Palazzo della Zisa, conceived as a summer residence for the kings, represents one of the best examples of the union of Norman art and architecture, with Arab decorations and engineering for the exchange of air in the rooms. It is, in fact, a building facing northeast, that is towards the sea, to better enjoy the more temperate breezes, especially at night, which were captured inside the building through the 3 large arches of the facade and the large viewpoint window on the floor tall. These wines were also moistened by the passage over the large fish pond in front of the building. The presence of running water inside the Sala della Fontana gave a great sensation of coolness. Palazzo Conte Federico is one of the oldest and most prestigious buildings in Palermo. Its 12th century Arab Norman tower is located on the Punic wall of the old city and is a mix of Norman, Aragonese, and Swabian art. The house belongs to the Federico counts who acquired it in the mid-17th century and who still live in this palace today. In the various halls, furnished with original furniture, you can admire the wooden coffered ceilings, the 18th century frescoes and various collections of weapons and ancient ceramics. Monte Pellegrino is a promontory in the form of a real limestone mountain, 609 meters high, which closes the Gulf of Palermo to the north and the Gulf of Mondello to the south. From the top of the mountain, easily accessible by car, to the north, you can enjoy a splendid view of the city of Palermo and the Golden Basin, while to the south it sweeps over Mondello Beach. A few meters from the summit of Monte Pellegrino, immersed in a wild and luxuriant nature, stands the sanctuary of Santa Rosalia, the patroness of Palermo, founded in 1625. It is said that while the city was plagued by the Black Plague, a hunter he accidentally found his bones in the cave of Monte Pellegrino where the saint had died. The Vittorio Emanuele Theatre, better known as the Teatro Massimo, is the largest opera house in Italy, and one of the largest in Europe, third in order of architectural size after the Paris Opera and the Vienna Opera Stats. At its opening, due to its monumentality and size, it aroused the envy of many, as can easily be verified by reading the Italian newspapers of the time. King Vittorio Emanuele himself always refused to attend a show, justifying his decision by the fact that he considered such a magnificent theatre to be wasted on such ignorant citizens, as he considered the Palermitans of the time. The state of conservation of the countless corpses on display make the Capuchin catacombs of Palermo one of the most impressive places to visit in the world. Mummification is an ancient tradition that has particularly taken hold in Sicily. The cemetery was closed in 1880, except for the exception of 2 more corpses. The first, in 1911, was that of the Vice-Consul of the United States. The second, in 1920, was that of little Rosalia, who died at the tender age of 2. still perfectly preserved today, known as the most beautiful mummy in the world. I Quattro Canti, or Teatro del Sol, is the name of an octagonal square at the intersection of the two main road axes of Palermo, via Maqueda and Cassaro, and represents the tourist center of the city. At the base of the buildings there are four 19th-century fountains with statues from the Four Seasons.